Okay, yeah, sure.
That's a little easier to line up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting my single track in three, two, one, now.
All right.
Okay,
There we go.
it's going. And I'm going to start. I'm getting a little bit of feedback on your end.
Oh, let me try that. How's that?
Yeah, that's better, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start recording the other one now. All right. I am good to go.
Sweet. So how was your week?
Do you want
man?
to do the introduction this time?
Yeah, I'll do the introduction.
Okay, go ahead.
How was your week, man?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good, man. Just playing some Division 2 and just fucking around.
So, Raziel, how do you pronounce my name?
Rhomagus.
Yeah, that's about right.
Why?
I've heard it pronounced so many ways, but how do you pronounce yours? It is Raziel, right? It's not like Raziel
Yeah.
or
Oh, you can say Raziel or Raziel. Either one works.
yeah. That's what I've
Yeah.
noticed with mine as well. Is it there's so many different ways that you can pronounce it. It doesn't matter either way.
Right.
But what I wanted to get into was some feedback from the last show.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I specifically, I had your video up because no one commented on mine. But granted, it was
Right.
late.
Sure.
And I would like to put like a little cap on the last show, and I think it really does a good job of segueing into the subject of this show, which is the state of streaming. So
Yeah, I think it does.
yeah, so Zio RPG wrote, "Fellow Zillennial here, great stuff. I heard a lot of myself in that conversation. After a breakup I had in late '06, I no-lifed the hell out of Phantasy Star Universe in between college schoolwork, and it helped. Did the same thing with Final Fantasy XI a few years later when my mom passed away back in 2010, and yeah, these games can be excellent coping mechanisms. I found your channel toward the tail end of Stormblood and didn't start watching your streams until your last few weeks doing that. Actually made me want to try my hand at streaming. I have to say that after a couple months of doing it myself, I think it's made me appreciate all the behind the scenes stuff, game choice, tech, etc. It's true that you can't really appreciate something until you've tried your hand at it yourself. You two spoke a lot about external validation, and I think that serves as the impetus for taking up streaming, or content creation in general. Damn near impossible to do, though, with virtually everyone, their mom, and their dog doing the same thing. Can't really figure out what's working and what isn't if you're languishing at the bottom of a category in what's essentially an echo chamber for months on end, despite pounding the pavement on other platforms. My take on the big three streaming platforms right now: Twitch. Don't do it unless 90% of your content is in the meat space and or you have boobs. Seems to be the direction they're going with them trying to court older people onto their platforms of late. You're already one of us. Mixer. Only shooters and MOBA seem to get any real traction over there. And YouTube, lousy chat system, also COPPA. So that was Zio RPG, what he wrote, and actually had a lot to say about that, which had a lot to do with the last episode. A couple of points that I didn't really get a chance to take, so I took this opportunity to write in text on your comment section. So I quote.
Yeah. I did see that. I did see that, and I read all my comments. I mean, even on the videos where I have like hundreds, I read them all.
Yeah.
So I do remember this one.
So I requoted him specifically in regards to video games and coping mechanisms. And so my assumption, based on the conversation that we had last week, was that you're kind of more leaning towards like there's a good and bad escapism, and that in certain instances it could be okay. So I opened with, well, I think Raziel might identify and condone this behavior. I cannot. I too used a video game to distract myself from my brother's death back in '07. My nephew and my other brother, who would just trade off turns of The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. I don't remember anything about that game. It wasn't really helping the pain go away. I was just escaping and not dealing with the pain of his death. Looking back, there's a lot of things that I have let go by the wayside because I'm still running from my brother's death. I stopped visiting my old hometown. I stopped talking to my family. I've isolated myself from not only the world, but my family as well, and it hasn't led me to any stronger place, except perhaps a more introspective mindset. But for sure, my interpersonal skills have taken a hit. I learned how to run from that particular problem and learned the unhealthy coping mechanism of escapism, to which now I use food to cope. But it's been so long, it's illegitimate to say that I'm using food to actually cope, but I am just using it to escape, as alluded to in the discussion. As I'd covered in the conversation, in other moments of distress, I'd actually explored my painful emotions. When we were talking about The Cure. As cheesy as it was, brooding in my room listening to The Cure wasn't escaping, but focusing on the painful emotion of unrequited love and loss. While I may have shut myself off from the world, I was exploring the emotion through stories and art. I was searching for answers that could lead me to a better understanding of coping with the emotion, but time spent with The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, I was just zoning out then. I was running from my brother's death. I wasn't searching for a means to tackle the emotion of such a tragic loss. Another thing that I would do is I would sleep for no reason. So sleeping for no reason was another method of escape that I'd utilized in both my divorce or post-divorce and my brother's death. Instead of doing things and trying to make things better, I tried to escape into a world that wasn't real, specifically my dreams, so that I didn't have to deal with the fact my wife cheated on me and that my brother was dead. This method of escape was heightened when I would dream about my deceased brother. My brain would form elaborate stories as told by him in my dreams as to how he was still alive. Life wasn't a living nightmare per se, but it was certainly a horrible timeline that I used every opportunity I had to attempt to escape. Over time, I realized if I'm going to distract myself so fervently, I should distract myself with healthy pursuits. My deceased brother's wife would sign her kids up for all sorts of extracurricular activities in order to distract them from their father's death. I can't say for sure how effective that was, but I also don't see dwelling on it as being too conducive to the psychology of a child. As an adult male, I should have and should be more proactive in trying to explore avenues in order to reconcile my emotional state with the tragic reality of the real world. But these points weren't really covered in the last episode. It was really the impetus for the whole discussion why I proposed the subject in the first place. If I'm escaping, I'm fleeing. I'm running from something. I'm putting things off until tomorrow. There's a point where escaping, fleeing, running from something is necessary in order to live another day, specifically in a fight or flight situation. By the same token, chronic escapism, daily escapism, repeated escapism can, unfortunately, only be summed up as cowardly. If instead you think you can derive some purpose in abstract virtual worlds that will indeed help you actively tackle your problems, then by all means, explore that avenue. But that doesn't involve no-lifing a game, at least in my opinion. I still contend that no-lifing a game, especially as an adult male, is unhealthy, even as a coping mechanism. As looking back, my experiences with escapism have been at the heart of my continued and prolonged mental distress. And I have a lot more to say about streaming in particular, as he seems to be concerned about how to utilize Twitch,
Right.
Mixer, and YouTube. But we can get into that a little bit. I know you were the one specifically to propose this week's topic of the state of streaming. I'm kind of more curious. What is it that you had in mind?
Well, I mainly want to just go over pretty much the culture that it's created, because whether you like it or not, it has changed gaming significantly, especially any game that's online.
Mm-hmm.
It has drastically altered the landscape. I think it's drastically altered the way developers approach games. I think it's done a lot of good, but at the same time, it's done a lot of piss poor, shitty things, and it's opened a lot of avenues for parasites to leech on. I mean, I think the whole entire Twitch industry, because it was started 100% as like stream your video game, a video game streaming platform, and it's turned into so much more than that now. I mean, it's like it's an avenue for esports. It's an avenue for ridiculous amounts of thoughtery and simpery it goes on, and cuckoldry that goes on. It's turned into it's a perfect tool for a narcissist to continue being a narcissist. But there's a lot of good things too. So I want to, really talk about, first off, like my own experience with streaming, why I got into it in the first place. And then kind of from there branch out into what it's done to the industry and, in my opinion, what's good about it, what's bad about it.
Yeah, I was thinking while you were going off on specifically streaming, a lot of those tendencies, it's kind of just like the internet in general. I think what Twitch, what streaming has done, in specifically the bad parts, I think what's happening is because it's gaining a larger viewership and audience, and also a lot more streamers trying to be a part of that, you're getting more of the bad,
Right.
And all of that's kind of like coming up to surface. But I think that's just true for the internet in general. Like, I don't think the state of the internet today could really be compared to the state of the internet, say, back in the 90s or late 80s. It was a lot more. The people that were on the internet back then were a lot more technically savvy, and the amount of, I guess, useless, superfluous data and trash wasn't as prevalent.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, Twitch follows the trends of the internet, and it's no exception. I mean, the internet's an outlet, and so is Twitch. It's an outlet for both like exploration and creativity, but at the same time, it gives people a voice to spout utter fucking bullshit, and it also gives people a voice to, in my opinion, it's a good way that sane people can still keep their opinion out there, because if you say, a lot of people, if you're not a far leftist, if you're not a complete fucking lunatic, if you say your opinion out loud in real life, you're more likely to get you lose your career, lose friends, lose family over stuff you say or believe, while on the internet you have anonymity that can mask some of those things. But Twitch, for a lot of people, because almost any Twitch streamer who even has a regular viewership, and I mean, especially like, as that previous comment we talked about said, me as a straight white man, obviously I don't have tits. I'm not, for having even an audience, I've only been streaming grand total, taking out the time that I've let it go for a while here and there, maybe 8, 9, 10 months total. And for someone like me, to peak at one point at about 40, you were there that stream, like 40 to almost 50 viewers.
There's a Shadowbringers opening premiere.
Yeah, for that is quite a huge accomplishment. And because it's really hard to get a Twitch following. It's 10 times harder to get a Twitch following than it is to get a YouTube, subscriber base. And and if you're even kind of that big where you get a regular in the double digits or more of people watching your streams, you're showing your face. Nobody who doesn't show their face, well, not nobody. I'm not going to say nobody. There are exceptions to the rule, but most people that are streaming with any kind of viewership, people have seen your face, so a lot of your anonymity goes away.
Well, that's kind of part of the draw from the audience, right? Is like that.
Right.
It's like going to a band. It's like going to a band that doesn't have a lead singer. Like
exactly.
The lyrics in a rock song it's like the human element, and I think that's the same with streaming. A lot of people. I agree with you. Like most of the top streamers, the streamers with any sort of audience, they also stream themselves. Now, for me, I don't do that. 2, I think you're like the only exception where like I'll watch you, but I don't watch you because of you. Like I'm not like you could turn your webcam off and I would still watch you. Though I will say that Lil Raz is actually quite entertaining. So
he's fucking adorable.
Yeah, I think I'd be missing out on that. And I've noticed that too. Is a lot of streamers will use like like cats and dogs but that's a relationship.
Yeah.
That's a relational thing, right? Like that's how
Right.
your audience can sort of
Right.
they see the
I definitely think
humanity
you're
in
the
you.
exception to the rule in that case. Most people that watch streams, I mean, yeah, they do watch to see the game and to see someone really good at the game to beat certain things so they can, you know, improve their own gameplay, or they're watching because the game that the person's playing is a game they're really interested in and they're unable to play at that time, like they're at work or something like that, so they're killing time till they go home and can play themselves. But I would think that the vast majority of people who watch streamers regularly and subscribe to streamers like the person or their personality that they present.
I agree. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
and it's kind of disappointing, right? I mean, because that's one of the great things about the internet, you know, is that you don't have to show your face. You know,
Right.
we don't have to see you. You can just come as you are, and we're just sort of we're getting to know the person. You know, the abstract mind of the person. It's almost
Right.
like we were talking about
to be fair,
before.
I think women way more are watched because of what they actually look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they have their tits hanging out
Correct.
and they're acting like a whore
Yeah.
on Twitch, then yeah, you're gonna get a bunch of kids between the ages of 12 up to, you know, maybe early 20s, and then some really filthy old men
That's what I
on
was
there
gonna
as
say,
well.
yeah.
But
It all depends
what
on
I'm
the
saying though
desperation
is
level.
right. They're 9 times out of 10 for women. They're not watching if the woman's attractive. They're not watching for the gameplay,
Yeah.
regardless of how good or bad she may be at the game she's playing. And you'll notice a lot of women know this because how they're set their streams up is they'll have the gameplay really small and them, you know, their webcam really large.
Correct.
And so it's like, okay,
Well,
if that's how you want to do it,
Yeah.
that's, you know, whatever, to each their own. But
it's a sex
I
sales
think
sort of
for
deal.
dudes, it's way more about what you say and your personality than what you look like. I mean, but it is nice to put a face to a voice, if that makes any sense.
Indeed. Well, I think, but that's the thing, and this is where the bell curve comes in. You know, is while it's probably easier to gain a following as a female streamer, the top streamers aren't females. The top streamers are males.
That's partially true. I mean, there's quite a few pay pigs for Twitch that are female.
well, that's
like
that's
Amaranth and
different
shit
though.
like that.
That's different
because-
though, right? So like,
Yeah, they're
like-
not playing games. That's just chatting.
Well-
that's pretty much ChatterBait light.
well, even
what it
just like revenue is different than viewership, right? You can have
Right.
you can have a large viewership and have not as much revenue as a
That's
person
true, too.
who has
That's
a
very
has
true.
a smaller viewership, but they donate a lot
Right.
more bits, or they throw
Right,
out
right,
subs
right.
to people in chat all the time.
you know, this is a. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, well, and to jump off your point of pay pigs, you know, like men tend to not have pay pigs, you know, because that's not
Well,
That
unless
is
you're
the main
fucking
draw.
DSP, where at this point it's just a butt end of a joke.
right, exactly.
Right.
But yeah, like it is sort of like, and to be honest, it's easy to make the connection, but it's just kind of like an internet strip club in some instances, you know.
Oh, absolutely, and it's a good segue into, you know, you have a lot of people on Twitch that will have personalities which are either completely different from who they are in real life, or they're just an exaggeration of who they are in real life. A perfect example of this is like Asmongold, for example. I mean, he's one who, you know, during WoW Classic's launch would regularly have in between 20 and 40,000 people watching his streams all the time. And I saw a site where someone figured it out, where during those months he was making, you know, hundreds of $1,000s, nearing millions a month.
Wow.
Like it was ridiculous how much money he was making there. But people didn't watch Asmongold because of WoW Classic per se, like the game. I mean, that game's 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They were watching him for the persona that he puts on. And I know he quit streaming recently, but I think he's coming back soon. And he said the reason he quit is because he felt he could no longer be authentic anymore.
Yeah.
And he had to kind of go with the flow, and he let himself ultimately change his personality to please his crowd.
Right. Well,
is what he did, and he says he hated it, and made him uncomfortable, and so he had to step away because his stream had become something that he hated. Even though, the Asmongold that is on his actual stream is far different from the person he is in real life, in terms of it's far more exaggerated and trolly on his stream.
Yeah.
And when in real life he's not quite like that.
Well, I've noticed that just like big personalities tend to be the draw, and
Yeah.
And I think if you're chasing that subscriber count or that view count, then your behavior starts being shaped by that positive reinforcement, or like what we've talked about last week, external validation, right?
Right. Yeah. You become addicted to it, and if you go into streaming anyway, as a narcissist, it's just going to feed that even more.
Yeah,
So I'm going to go into a little more like why I got into streaming. It looked like it was a lot of fun. As someone who's a gamer, and I know it's kind of rare for an actor, but I'm very introverted. I wouldn't even use the word introverted as much as I don't tolerate bullshit from people. I have very low patience for stupid people, and stupid people are everywhere. Let's face it. They fucking surround us everywhere. And on top of that, so I wouldn't say I'm introverted as much as I'm not even antisocial. I'm what's the word I'm looking for here?
Asocial?
I'm very private.
Yeah.
with who I am.
Well, you show your
I don't
face
tell,
though.
Right, but what can you get from my face? Yeah, I have fun telling personal stories because it's weird. I'm private, but at the same time, I know it's totally contradicting myself. But I'm private, but at the same time, about a lot of topics, I'm an open book, as you've seen in my streams.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to dox myself, if that makes sense.
Well, you've been found though.
Oh, I have been found.
For
have.
People that are that's the trick, right?
A handful of psychos.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. See, that's precisely why I always go by a pseudonym on the internet, and I don't show my face.
Right.
And I actually do my best to not even refer to my location. And if I talk about people that I know in real life, I actually try to come up with a pseudonym on the spot as a replacement for their name.
Right.
And it's not because I'm scared.
Go ahead.
Actually, I kind of see it as a challenge, and I don't want to throw it out there, but like I would kind of be flattered if I received a broken needle in the mail because someone because someone had to go through. Someone would have had to go through a lot of hoops to try to figure out who I was, because I'm pretty good at not dropping any hints about who I am or where I am.
See, and I'm not afraid of necessarily people finding me. Like if someone like tried to find me to quote unquote cause me harm, that's the point where I look them in the face, punch myself in the mouth, and say, "Hey, one's on the house. I'm planning on dying tonight. What are your plans for the night?" I don't give a shit. Like I don't give a fuck.
Well, I think what I respect about your method is that you're still able to like wear your heart on your sleeve, even with your face out there.
Well, that just kind of comes with it. Maybe that's why I got into acting. Maybe it's an innate trait. I don't know.
Yeah,
'cause it's not something I like developed over time. It's something that I've always been that way. There's a lot of people out there that put on a fake persona, and that's one thing I'm happy to say that I have never done, and nor will I ever do. And you've seen in my streams when people have come in and they've started saying, they start talking shit or they start doing whatever, and I don't hesitate and just tell them to go fuck themselves. Well, and I don't. And at the same time, though, I won't instantly ban or boot them.
Yeah, well, I know that because I'm the guy who does that.
Right. Exactly.
I know that firsthand.
That's the thing is, I know that you're a troll
Right,
because
right,
I know
right,
you.
yeah.
Well, like I've had a couple of people come in, that just start talking some shit, and I have no idea who they are, and it's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like,
Yeah.
like,
I've had
I don't care.
I've had a couple obvious bots. Like they'll come in and they'll advertise something, but I haven't had
Right.
anyone troll me yet. The first,
I'm actually lucky. I think I've had like one bot in all like 8 months that I stream.
nice.
Like I've almost never gotten a bot.
I did have one weird interaction on YouTube, right? So this wasn't while I was streaming. Is when I posted the video. I posted a video of what quest was it? It was the quest right before you fight Ifrit in Final Fantasy XIV, where you're meeting with Thancred, and you're dressed as like peasants to catch the
yeah.
guy who was selling out the people of Drybone. Some guy wrote a really like angry quote or comment on the YouTube channel. I was like, there was nothing, like there was no commentary on it. I didn't say anything.
There's no context.
Yeah, like he just wrote like he said like "fuck you" or something like really like angry at me, and I was like, I tried to like I scrubbed the video for like any sort of like possible offensive material, and I didn't see anything. So like I had no clue why this guy was so angry. The only thing I could think of was that like it was the entire story, like because it was. I think I just captured the storyline without any gameplay, but he didn't say anything like that. He just
Right.
like told me to fuck off or whatever. So like I made it
man,
private
those-
and didn't do anything with it. But I just like I just thought that was a weird sort of interaction. And there's just a
Dude,
ton of people out there like that.
If you're gonna start posting on YouTube and you get bigger on your Mixer stream, I'm telling you right now, man, like just get ready because on YouTube, man, I get mountains of fucking dipshit retards
Ah,
that say the most stupid shit, the most like where their opinion is nullified with a simple Google search because they have no facts.
Right.
And so you just can't, you got to let it roll off you, man. Like it doesn't matter. Like I'm just like, who the fuck is this guy?
yeah.
Like nine times out of 10, the people that say this kind of shit in your comments would never ever dare say that to your face if they met you.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? And so it's like you just got to let it go because I actually find it funny. I was considering at one point possibly scrubbing through every video I've ever posted on my YouTube channel. I think right now I'm at like 103, 104 videos, and finding every negative comment I could, and then printing them out and then doing like a dramatic reading.
Oh,
of
that
every
would be
single
great.
one for a video.
I've seen those, man. Those are hilarious. I remember back in the
I want to do that.
Newsground.
It would be really
or
funny.
Newgrounds.
Yeah.
Newgrounds.
There was Newgrounds. Yeah. I want to do one of
Yeah,
those because that would be
There's some funny ones
my
out
acting
there.
chops out there.
Some people just get so angry. Oh yeah, your acting chops would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that.
It's so funny, man. Like it's but anyway, let's shift back on topic.
Yeah. Well,
So
in
we-
regards to like having pseudonyms and stuff, like, see, mine's the exact opposite reason. Like for you, you can show your face and be yourself, and still have your heart on your sleeve on the stream. While for me, and I think a lot of the philosophical stuff that we cover, I use my pseudonym as a means to get deeper to get to a deeper truth. I know I had a lit major friend of mine referred to nonfiction as sort of a shallow truth, and referred to fiction as getting it to deeper truths. Sort of truths that you can't get to with nonfiction. And so that's what I use. That's why I use Rhomagus Asclepiad as an online handle, is so that I can keep those two lives separate. My mom, my brother, my work associates have no clue who Rhomagus is, and no one on the internet knows who I am. Again,
Right.
unless they were to go psycho and really try to figure out who I was.
I have a couple friends that know my real life friends that know of my YouTube channel and my Twitch, and I think one or two of my family members do. The only two that would really ever understand it. But yeah, I mean, you just got to be careful, and and the bottom line is I'm at the age and the point in my life I've been through enough. I just don't fucking care.
Yeah.
I don't care what people see. I don't care what people know, because I'm the last thing I ever want to be is fake.
Well, and another thing
You know?
that you'd stated before, that like if you had said something in real life that would actually get you fired. I don't know. It's been my experience that like real life is a lot more palatable and a lot more acceptable. Like you can, I mean, like you can be a liberal in real life, or you could be a conservative in real life, but you can't be both on the
Right.
internet, right? Like you can be a liberal.
No.
Well, I mean, you can, but like you have to go to certain sites to say your certain opinion, right? You can't, like,
Right.
you can, but you can't really be a conservative on YouTube. You definitely can't be a
Right.
conservative on Twitter, and I'm not sure how conservative you could be on Twitch, but like I
You
find
can't really be conservative
right.
anywhere. Like I mean, I'm not a conservative. I mean, again, I don't like talking about politics, but I'm definitely not a liberal, and I'm definitely not a conservative.
But you can't be edgy.
Right, right. So, and I'm the fucking edge
Right,
lord.
right.
So it's which the thing is I know for a fact though that if my Twitch or YouTube got big enough, they would ban me. They would ban me
you from
and
Twitch, or do you think you would get
Twitch.
like brigaded?
YouTube, they just demonetize me completely.
Well, do you think
Twitch?
Do you think people
they
would like call your
They
work
would ban me.
and try to get you fired?
No, I don't think so. But I mean, because to be real, I've never the most heinous shit I've ever said on my Twitch and on my YouTube channel. They've all been in jest. They've been in jokes, like the most over the top stuff. And then
That's kind of the point with
the
some of these
other
folks,
stuff,
right? Is like they take that
Exactly.
shit out of context on purpose.
and the other stuff I say that would be considered edgy is shit that 15, 20 years ago was considered normal, rational human thought.
Right.
And so whatever, like I don't worry too much about it. It's not that big of a deal, and nothing I say, I mean, you have to admit, I never say anything that's like hate, that I would consider even hate speech.
Well, that's the thing, is
Like
what's
it's-
being considered hate speech is that goalpost keeps moving.
Right. Well, definitions of everything keep changing. So, it's living in a fucking clown world.
Yeah.
But on that point, moving forward a bit with the topic at hand here is what Twitch streamers say. I think is one of the biggest things that has influenced the gaming industry as a whole, especially MMOs and online gaming, is because for all these development companies, it's free advertising for them. If they, it's very common for companies, Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft, Massive Entertainment. A lot of these big companies will literally fly out, pay them and pay for their airline ticket and their hotel to fly out and cover events so they can talk about it on their YouTube channel and their streams, and will pretty much do everything they can to get these streamers in their back pocket to positively review the game. They're not allowed to be negative or they don't get paid. But to influence sales of the game, it's for most part, it's free fucking advertising, and sometimes has a very small cost of
That's what I'm
for
saying.
one plane ticket
At
in a
least at
hotel
that
room.
point, they're kind of paying for it at least.
Right.
But it's cheaper than paying journalists.
Right. Which is why you get even more Twitch streamers and YouTube people that are just straight up personalities and not genuine, because they're fucking company shills at that
Yeah,
point.
they're
I mean, I
employees.
think there's for every one YouTuber or Twitch streamer that's not a shill, there's 30 that are.
Yeah.
So it's like, and the thing is, it's not hard for me now to identify which people are that. All you gotta do is watch, a handful of their YouTube videos and see what they say on stream and their attitude towards things. And you can tell instantly that mixed in the way they look, the look in their eyes, and mixed in with what they say and their body language, is they're fucking slaves.
Yeah.
Like you can see that they actually feel like shit because they know they're not being genuine, and they know that they're full of shit.
Yeah.
And you can see that. But then on the other end, you have people that are genuine and aren't necessarily paid off. And they got the idea, hey man, I'm going to make Twitch streaming playing video games for money. That's going to be it. I won't have to get a real job. I think a lot of it stems from fucking laziness and social retardation. So they think that I can just make playing a game my job.
Well, it's the new let's
and then
start
they
a
get
band,
into it, and
Yeah.
And here's the problem: is even if they get really big, and you see this all the time too, even if they get really big, and they're not as socially retarded anymore. Like they're talking to people, they're having fun. A lot of streamers cover only like one game a lot of the times, mainly, and that one game becomes their livelihood, and then you can go in to watching them stream, and you can see them literally fucking hating their life, like their old passion and the thing that they enjoy doing so much now is now the 9 to 5.
Yep.
And they don't even want to be playing that game because they've done everything they can. They're bored. But they know, hey, if I switch games, I lose money. If I quit for a while, take a break, I lose money. And we all know if you're a Twitch streamer and a YouTuber full time, you don't have insurance. You don't have health insurance. So it's, even if, unless they're making unless they're an Asmongold or a PewDiePie and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on average, it's not going to cut it. And you'll literally see, I'm not going to say his name, but there was a YouTuber I used to love to watch all the time. I loved his content. I mean, I still do enjoy some of the content he puts out, but he switched from, he quit the game that he was mainly his channels were about because he didn't like it anymore. So it's like, good on him. And he made an alternate YouTube channel and changed his Twitch stream, changed his name, like his avatar or whatever, to be about his own personal life and just gaming in general. And I like, this is great. And I followed even more. I became even more interested in what he did. But the vast majority of his followers gave him shit and stopped following and watching his stuff. And you could see that after a couple of months of this, because he wasn't making money anymore, which was going to equate to, okay, now you got to go out and get a real job if you want to keep living. He went back to the game he hated. He still hates it. He still gives it shit all the time, just so he could get his views back and his livelihood back. And I lost a lot of respect for him when he did that, because I'm like, dude, what's worse, like having to work a regular job or being miserable at this other thing and having to get rid of your self-respect?
Right. Well, and it's like it's indirectly an insult to your audience, right? Because your audience is that person. Your audience is made up mostly of those people that hate their jobs, and that are wanting to do this for a job, for example. And it's like
my advice to anyone who's listening to this right now. Sorry to cut you off, but anyone who's listening to this, if you think you want to become a Twitch streamer and a YouTuber for a job, go somewhere in a corner and unfuck yourself, because trust me, it's not worth it. I've never intended on doing YouTube or stream for a job. I do it because I enjoy it. I mean, you saw it. I took a 4-month break from my YouTube channel and my Twitch because I just was like, I'm fucking bored of this right now. Yeah. And so I stepped away, and it's not my livelihood, so it didn't affect my finances at all. All the money I made from Twitch and YouTube, which wasn't a ton, it was an okay amount, but it wasn't a ton, was just, change in my pocket anyway. So it was like, I didn't care about the money. I was like, okay, I'm not going to force myself to do something I don't want to do ever. Yeah. And I'm not going to force myself to play a game that I don't want to play ever. I'll come back, and as you've seen, I have started to come back. I've done 2 streams since I've been back over the last 2 weeks, and I've put up, we're putting up the show now. I have another video I'm working on right now for Final Fantasy VII Remake demo that I played. But it's so good. We won't get into that.
I've been having so much fun with that. Maybe we'll save that for the next episode. But
at any rate, like, if you really like, I want to be a YouTuber and a Twitch streamer, there's a 98.7% chance you won't make it as one. The market's saturated, especially if you're a dude. And B, even if you did make it, it would end in your misery and your doxing. Yeah. So just don't get a real job. Find something in real life that you like to do and do that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is it like I see the draw. I see why people want to do it, and it's the same reason for back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when people were like, let's start a band. There are two types of people. There are two types of people that want to start a band. There's the type of person that wants to express themselves musically, and then there's the type of person that wants to be a rock star. And
The rock star almost never
right,
makes it.
exactly. Like, well, and not only do they not ever make it, and I'm pretty sure, like, you probably had experience with this with acting as well. It's the same with acting. You have
There was a lot of people in all the acting programs when I was getting my degree that you could tell the difference between the actors that wanted to just do it because they had a passion for telling stories and they loved the art form, and the ones that wanted to be the next, Tom Cruise,
Right.
the ones that wanted to be rich and famous. And I'm like, I was never the rich and famous type. I didn't really give a shit about that. And so people that want to do that, even if they make it, they're still fucking miserable, and 9 times out of 10 they either end up burning out on their career really quickly or they kill themselves.
Yeah. Old manager of mine, he was a bluegrass banjo player, and he would make the same comments. He'd play for hire, right? So he had this one chick that came in. She was younger, and that's exactly what she was kind of going for. She was trying to be a celebrity, and from his perspective, as the actual musician, like he could spot that from a mile away. He'd played with people
Right.
that actually had a passion for making music, and he'd played with people that were, prima donnas, and like you can almost tell like exactly right away.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think there's a lot of people too that when they get the idea, I want to go into streaming and YouTubing because I want, to feed. I mean, they obviously don't say this out loud, but it's subconscious. I want to feed my narcissism and become famous. And you can see plenty of those streamers out there that think that their shit doesn't stink, and they go to events and they're like, well, I'm a fucking streamer, so I'm like a celebrity. It's like, dude, no, you're not. You sit in your house and you play fucking Nintendo in front of
Right.
people.
Well,
Like you haven't accomplished your accomplishment is 100% in being seen. Your accomplishment is not at all what you're doing.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, that's not an accomplishment at all. Like it's
Well, they're like they're like
it's,
becoming a brand. I was thinking about this. I was
right.
I was in IHOP earlier today, and I was just kind of eating my breakfast, and I was thinking like, why? I was listening to this British commentator, and it just popped into my head. I know it's kind of like random, but it just popped into my head. How many British actors I really like, and I started to kind of compare the American actors that like I'm familiar with and the British actors that I really respect. And a lot of the interviews that I've read with the British actors really focus on the craft. And what I notice a lot about with the American actors is there's a lot more about like their lives rather than their job. When I like Gary Oldman, for example, I think he's my favorite actor. Whenever I read an interview about him, he's always talking about the job. I don't really see tabloids about Gary Oldman,
Right.
but I see a ton of tabloids like about Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston.
No, I agree. I agree completely. I mean, that's because you have to keep in mind too. That's because America has Hollywood, and England doesn't. But you brought up a really good point where you think about these actors that keep their cards really close to their chest, and they're happy to talk about their work, but like if you get into their personal life, they go silent and say, it's kind of none of your business. The funny thing is it's such a enigma in the twitching and in Twitch and the streaming community as a whole, and YouTube, Mixer, is people put on fake personas. It's not who they really are. And so they're giving out not fully false information, but not real, not like their real self to everybody else to see. And then in the same way that a Hollywood actor does, they get this stuck in their head that their opinions on anything other than the game that they're playing right then and there fucking matter. And they fucking don't. Like, I give my opinions on Twitch all the time if someone asks me, but don't take my word for it. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. You don't have to agree with me. If I say something on a political or a religious, note about what I believe, it doesn't make my opinion any more valuable than yours just because I'm on Twitch. But so many people, with Hollywood actors and with Twitch streamers think, oh, that guy, like a good example, like a lot of Asmongold's, followers, I'm sure have the mindset of, oh, Asmongold said this and did this, so that must mean it's the cool and okay thing to do or to be, so I'm going to be that. And just like Hollywood actors say, they're fucking worthless political opinions. And it's like, dude, you haven't, you're worth millions and millions of dollars. Especially the people that started out as child actors. And you're like, you literally have never experienced a real person's life. You've been fucking loaded with money and privilege. I hate that word, but like connections. You've never had to really do a whole lot. Not all actors are like this. A lot of them do come from nothing and had to grind their way up. But this is synonymous with anyone who has any kind of fame. All of a sudden, they think that their personal opinions about what's going on in the world and any topic outside of their realm of expertise somehow fucking matters more than someone else's who doesn't. Like that's why you get fucking stupid Hollywood actors telling everybody how to vote, and you get Twitch streamers,
that's like
telling that their opinion of a video game is the only way it can possibly be, that no one else can have a different opinion. And then all these fucking mindless monkeys, just agree, even if they didn't agree before that person said
That's the worst part, right? I don't actually blame actors for having an opinion. Like they're doing a job, like their opinion about politics matters just as much as mine does. I'm not a politician either. I'm an everyday dude that just drives a delivery truck. What am I supposed to know about governing a state or what it takes to do that sort of stuff? So it's like at that extent, but that's the thing, is that they think and they know that their words have more weight than mine does, even though it's not related.
And they're abusing that power, in my opinion, because let's face it, the vast majority of people on this planet are fucking idiots, and they're like sheep, they hear an opinion and they're like, okay, well that's my opinion now. And where I'm getting this too is I'm actually reading a book right now. It's a fantastic book called the Curse of the High IQ. And I mean, for my current job, I had to take an IQ test, right?
Yeah.
And I scored, and you have to, they're not 100% accurate, so you have to give or take 5 points in either direction. But I scored 138. So I'm pretty up there. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal until I started reading this book, where it literally said, if your IQ is over 120, you are smarter than, I think it was, they had a whole graph and a whole mathematical chart out, than like 96% of the rest of the human population, if you have an IQ of 120 or higher. And the difference is staggering, because let's say there's me, let's just round up, say I have an IQ of 140, right? The average human has an IQ of 90 to 100.
Yeah. So
if you're talking to somebody, if me is an IQ of 140, if I'm talking to someone who has an IQ of 90, let's say, so they're kind of dumb, right?
Slightly below average.
An IQ of 90, that's 50-point difference, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, even though that person walking around to everybody else seems like just an average dude, like to me, he's retarded. Like that's the difference level, because if you look at him, his score is 90. If he talked to someone who had an IQ of 40, that person is legitimately retarded. Someone with an IQ of 40 to 50 legitimately has a mental, biological retardation. Correct. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think it's like
they're disabled.
The United States military doesn't allow for people below an IQ of 80, because there's nothing that they can feasibly do.
Yeah, exactly. So then you look, and obviously that person with an IQ of 90 is going to instantly be able to tell someone who has mental retardation. Because they have certain facial features and certain things like that. They're going to be able to see that, and they're going to go. And if they had tried to have any meaningful conversation with that handicapped person, they would struggle. They'd probably get frustrated, because there's only so much that person, that has the mental handicap can understand and fathom and do. You can tell them things and they'll just believe it, like a child would, Right. And so the same gap exists between that guy with the 90 IQ and myself. So to me, even though I know he's not mentally retarded, he's frustrating for me to talk to, because he's not going to understand or grasp concepts that I can or do. And as I've been reading this book,
it just depends on the subject matter, though.
Sure. I mean, he may know more about certain things, but again, that's knowledge, not intelligence. It's not IQ. Right. So when I'm looking over this book, it revealed so much that I couldn't explain before about my own life, because I'd get really frustrated when it turns out the reason I was getting really frustrated with people and the reason why I would say I'm private and a little introverted and I hate dealing with people is because the vast majority of people are like, it's hard for me to interact with because I'm up there and they're down there, which isn't anybody's fault.
Right.
I was biologically born this way and they were biologically born that way. And so a lot of my frustration actually turned out to be just, it wasn't the person I was talking to. It was me. The reason why I was frustrated was because I didn't understand why it was happening.
Right.
And I'd say, well, you're just fucking stupid. And it's like, no, actually that person's just average. That their IQ is average. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
And so it's,
I mean,
it turns into, when you have back to my original point, if you have the vast majority of people floating between an IQ of 90 and 100, they're going to hear a famous actor's opinion on something or a Twitch streamer's opinion on something, and they're just going to eat it up and turn it into their own opinion, because obviously if someone has any clout, any sense of fame, their opinion to people who have trouble forming their own is going to hold more weight.
Right.
And that's why you get so many of these mindless idiots all over the place that just are sheep, where they could consume other people's ideas and thoughts and say that they're their own, and they don't actually take a step out and go, okay, I see that guy's point of view. Let me develop my own opinion on this matter. Yeah. They're like, oh, that guy has 40,000 people watching his stream. He must know what he's talking about. And it's not true at all.
I think
he's still just one guy with one opinion.
Yeah, I think a person with a standard IQ though can still wrap their brains around being able to form their own opinion on things.
Sure they can. I'm not saying they're incapable of forming their own opinion. What I'm saying is people gravitate to what's easy, and people gravitate.
My issue is
to clout and someone with fame.
Right. Well,
the herd mentality. Right. Follow along everybody else with everybody else says, because then you're accepted.
Like standard human. Well, there's a lot of like standard human instincts that drive that.
Sure, we're pack animals in a lot of ways.
But also, I guess my bigger problem is with the establishment sort of taking advantage of that. Like the established, like
the media and
the people who
definitely takes advantage
are
of that.
kind of upper echelon take advantage of the people who can't really think for themselves.
I mean, just look at the panic over coronavirus. It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Of what's going on with that mentality. It's like herd mentality, scare mentality, and tying it back into Twitch. A Twitch streamer says this game, whatever game he's talking about, fucking sucks. This game fucking sucks, and people, there's a good handful of people that will hear that, and just the next person, even though they've never played the game, someone will ask them, hey, have you ever played this game? Like, yeah, it fucking sucks. And they don't even realize that the whole reason they never even played it, the whole reason they think the game sucks is because this guy who gets 30, 40, 50,000 people watching him said it sucks.
Yeah.
So it must suck.
But like for me, it's like I see a lot of that's the problem with the old guard, like the old media, right? Is that there was no one else to shout back. On the internet, like some dumbass blue checkmark on Twitter can tweet something, and I can go into his comments and see everyone calling him out for his nonsense opinion, and I see that a lot.
Right.
So like, while
I see it a lot too. It's a really good thing.
Yeah. So and I can go to like 4chan. I can. There's dumb people on 4chan too, but there's also a lot of smart people. You can tell by what's written. and how the arguments are.
Absolutely.
Even
their grammar and their spelling,
correct.
You can figure stuff out pretty quick. But I think in the same way that like a big audience can feed a streamer's narcissism and can create like a herd mentality, a sheep mentality. Okay. I think the developers of the games feed them just as much, and not just with what I was talking about earlier, where they pay them off or whatever. You see it quite often. Like, let's say a new game releases, right? It comes out, and streamers will get it 2-3 days ahead of time and be allowed to stream it before anyone else can get their hands on it. In addition, they'll do things like I've seen it many times where an online game comes out, and so everyone's trying to get in. The servers are hammered, right? And so people are waiting in a queue or getting error messages because they can't get in the game, and which is normal when servers are getting hit that hard. But then you'll go on Twitch and you'll see the top streamers, the ones that are invited out to that kind of shit, are in and playing just fine. Yeah. And that's not a coincidence, man.
Exactly.
That's
I've seen that.
That's fucking loaded dice, man. That's what that is. Yeah, and everybody's seen it, and so you're like, it's. I mean, how can their ego not get built up at that point? How can they not think that their shit doesn't stink? When the corporate are looking at them as dumb monkeys, but build them up and tell them how great they are, and give them free shit and fly them out and give them early access, and then you have the followers sitting
Well, that's
there.
what's worse though. It's
just
like
being mindless sheep and eating it all up.
Well, even though corporate is seeing them as dumb monkeys, it's right. Like the rest of the audience, as seen by corporate, is even dumber. Right. So they're
absolutely,
paying,
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're using the streamer as a tool.
They're paying for the lead pack of the sheep, and using them
Absolutely.
as a tool.
Yep. The dog that herds the
Correct.
sheep in their direction, and where they open their wallets and dump out money. And so I think that's where it's the biggest part, where as far as gaming is concerned, it's negatively impacted that. I mean, if you want to get into what all the Twitch thottery's done too, I'm completely game. But that's your call.
No, I'll hold on that. I think I do want to touch on it, but I'll hold on that. The thing for me though is, I prefer watching YouTube videos for reviews and watching it streamed over. Because I used to read video game magazines when I was a kid. That was my favorite thing.
Oh, I did too. I had Game Informer, man.
Right? Yeah, I would read
Nintendo Power and Game Informer
was my big one, and EGM were the ones that I read all the time. The problem with that is, like, I remember when I was a kid, I would say read a review, and or I'd see an advertisement, and the screenshots looked so good, and then I would rent the game at my dad's house, and then put it in, and I was like, oh, this isn't as cool as I thought. And so that was the biggest draw for me when I started seeing people post their gameplay footage to YouTube, was like, I could see the game run, like I could see its frame rates, I could see how like a natural person would play the game. It started with Let's Plays.
Without having to spend any money.
Yeah, exactly. It started with Let's Plays, and it was far more informative just watching a guy play the game, not even say anything, just play the game. That was far more informative than the information that I was getting from a cabal of journalists that were ultimately paid by advertising dollars. Because I even figured that out when I was a kid, right? Was that like, okay, you're doing a review of this video game, and then when I turn the page, I see a giant ad for that same video game. How the fuck am I like? I figured that out when I was a kid. Like that's a breach of, Anyways,
it's a conflict of interest.
That's the word I was looking
the thing is, though, is as shitty as gaming journalism was back in the magazine days, dude. It's 10,000 times worse now.
Well, it's in my opinion, because it's dying. It's the same with religion.
Oh, it's not just that it's dying. Sure, it's not just that it's dying. It's that these fucking they're not even gamers, man. These people that write the articles now, and they're just using it as a platform to spread their own political opinions and their social justice warrior horseshit. Like that's what they use it for. Like I did a video on this a while ago where they did a review about a zombie video game, and we're saying that one of the biggest problems were too many of the zombies were white. And I'm like, are you fucking retarded? Like, yeah. It's like, dude, the game takes place in a part of America where the vast majority of the population there is white. Right. They're not, you're not going to be sitting there in rural Alabama. I can't even say that word right. With zombies everywhere, and see a bunch of Chinese people running around.
That's like, not going to be a thing that's likely.
You got to look at reality and facts. You got to look at, just report on the game. Tell us what its frame rate is. Tell us what its performance is. Tell us how the soundtrack and the story are, how the character development is, how the gameplay feels. Not your opinions on, one of fucking Bernie Sanders' goddamn, policies, and then how racist the zombies are.
I think there's some instances, though, where that actually is like a legitimate, I was thinking about this the other day, that kind of is a legitimate stance to take. In the case of that particular scenario, like, would you want, like, do you need minorities? Do you want minorities depicted as zombies? Is that a thing? I think that would wouldn't that be also just as offensive? But
you can't
but
please
like
them. At the
Final
end of the day.
Fantasy, for example, you know,
That's why no one has any respect for a single games journalist or
Yeah.
company anymore. Like, how often do you see IGN and Kotaku made fun of?
Yeah.
Like, because they were just a bunch of fucking
bad.
shill
They've gotten
idiots.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I was on Facebook just the other day, and someone asked, like, "Hey, do you guys know of any celebrities that play 14?" And like, I'm not really keen on celebrities, but I the one that came to the top of my head was Xavier Woods. He is a wrestler in the WWE, and like I posted that, and then like just because I knew of him through his Stormblood promotion, and like I started looking at kind of the a lot of the stuff that he did, and actually met a guy on there that actually is in his FC, you know, and he talked about him and stuff, and I was thinking like,
That's
well,
cool.
and Xavier Woods is he's a minority, he's a black dude, and I was thinking like that there is like if I were Xavier Woods and I played a Final Fantasy 11, I couldn't make a character that looks like myself. Right? Like,
Right. Right.
even though Final Fantasy 7 was made back in 1997 and Barrett was a part of the cast and you had Saz in Final Fantasy 13, you had Waka in
Well, people have already bitched about Barrett's voice actor
that's
for the remake.
That's
so
ridiculous.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen no matter
You
what.
had
but-
Waka, so you had
No, I-
Hawaiian representation in Final Fantasy X. Like
Right.
all of
Well, and
these
that-
minorities play these
ahead.
games as well, and I don't think there really is any reason why a fantasy genre can't have more minority representation. And me as a white guy, I kind of want to see an artistic representation of those people in those worlds. You know, like Red
Sure,
13 is great and all, right? But like I would also like to see like a human being, a spiritual Native American human being as a big like I loved Turok. You know, I'm not personally
Right. See,
Native
and to me, I
American,
don't-
but I liked Turok.
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what ethnicity, sexual orientation any character is in any game. All I ask is if anyone's there. I don't care if they're black, white, Hispanic, you know, Asian. The story needs to justify why they're there. I'm interested in their human story and their character. I'm not. But if they're there and it makes sense in the game, great, cool. If they're there and they're just there to check the diversity boxes, that's when I'm like, dude, get the fuck out of here.
I
Like,
completely agree.
like,
Yeah.
like it's stupid. Like it's just tell me a fucking story.
Specifically,
And whatever characters you put in, make it make sense while
yeah,
they're there.
specifically in Barrett's case, like especially the
Right.
criticism that he talks like Mr. T too much. Like that in and of
Oh my
itself is racist.
Like if you play the original fucking game, that's how he talks.
Like that was how it's written, and not only that, but like, let's say you are let's say you're a black dude who grew up in the 70s. You know, like, are you supposed to like? Do you think that they look at Mr. T as some sort of like joke? You know, like there was a time where that that rhythm and that vernacular was popular. Right, groove and jive talking.
In the 80s, it was
70s and
in the
80s. It was
70s
fine.
and
So you
80s,
got
it
to take
was
into
huge.
account that Tetsuya Nomura was in his 20s in the 90s. So more than likely, like those were probably the depictions that he saw, and that's not racist. That's like saying Louis Armstrong. If she had some guy that sounded like Louis Armstrong, you know, like that would be racist. That's not racist. That's a sign of that
agree.
time.
It's
you know.
It's dumb, but you did bring up something interesting that we can tie back into the the Twitch conversation is like if a famous person playing an online game that's not famous for streaming but famous for something else in real life. I know like Mila Kunis, for
Right, she
example,
plays
played
well.
World of Warcraft quite heavily, and what I was thinking is how Twitch streamers when they get their head pumped up so big and they get so popular, especially if they're playing an online game. It can ruin their experience even more. I mean, it can be good or it can be bad, but like a lot of times, like if you're a popular streamer and you play a game, people are gonna know who you are, roll on your server on purpose, to interact with you, and you're just gonna get spammed and trolled all fucking day long. Like Asmongold, I've seen it do it tons of times. I saw one stream. This was actually making me laugh my ass off, where DSP played WoW and they just fucking like griefed him for hours, and and that was kind of funny because DSP kind of deserves it because he's a piece of shit. But like, me personally, I've even experienced this, and I'm not even big, but I got on, and I've been on and many times had people whisper me and going, "Hey, are you, Raziel from YouTube?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh, holy shit!" I even had a guy once. He said, "Are you the Raziel from YouTube?" I'm like, "Yeah," and his character's name in the game was Raziel also. And he says, I get asked all the time if I'm that guy. And I'm like, yeah, what do you tell him? He's like, no, I'm not him. But I tell him I'm not even on the right server because he was cross-world at the time. And I've had people, want to party up with me and do things with me, which is fine. But I can see how that would further, how it could enhance your experience as a player. But I could also see how if you were big enough, it could make you hate the game that you're actually playing. To where you're like, dude, I can't even like... If I just get on one day and I'm not streaming, I'm not, making a video, I'm just on to play by myself or with a couple buddies I know in real life or my clan. And I'm just getting nonstop tells and nonstop like requests for things and not left alone. I can see how that would be a big problem too. Cause even big Hollywood celebrities, one of their biggest complaints about fame is how they have no privacy anymore.
Yep.
And I think, if you already got in the streaming business because you're a narcissist in the first place, that's just going to feed it even more, and then you're going to start just being a cock to people in the game, like because you're going to get fuck off.
I've been on both ends. There was one time that I had someone come up to me and said, like, "Oh, you from the Dodo Stampede?" That was my old show, and I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And what makes it easy is that there are no other me's. I'm the only Rhomagus on the internet, so. It's easy to tell.
You said that. Now there's going to be 500 tomorrow.
Yeah. So that was cool. And then I've also been on the other end. Actually, the reason why I started or re-rolled on Ragnarok was because at the time, Lukiel Bravestone from Speakers of Heidelin, they were looking for a new co-host. And I was like, hey, that's actually right up my alley. But one of the requirements is that you had to have a character on Ragnarok. And you had to be an end game.
Right.
So I was like, oh, well, I'll roll a character. And then once I get up there, then I'll audition or, apply for the role. But then life happened and I never got around to it. But I did end up seeing him in Limsa and I friended him and he friended me back. So it was cool. So I've been on both ends of that.
Right.
And I try not to,
it's funny too, like
because I don't want to like poke him every day. I want to.
Sure. It's funny too, as a streamer and YouTuber myself, like I get suggestions on my YouTube comments.
Oh, well,
like
and before you move on too, it's like, that's why I rolled a character on Sargantinus. It's because because you were on there and you were starting up your free company and I was friends with...
Right, that's different though. I flat out invited people. I said, hey, come play here, but like I've been on, like you get suggestions on YouTube and on Twitch, and some of them are really good and give me some good ideas. But some of them are like, Jesus, man.
Sorry.
some of them are like, no, just shut the fuck up. Like, or they suggest collaborations, and things like that, put you in positions like I've been said I should do a collab with Work to Game, and I'm like, fuck that. I'm not. Yeah. No, that's not happening. I've had people ask me if I'd guest on. Not people that can actually get me on the show, just in general. If I'd guest on like Mr. Happy's, like
that's the thing.
Videos that he does, not
those people have to invite
like the State of the Realm, and I'm like, no. They would never want me on there anyway.
If they ask, that's fine.
I'm too much of a prick. Yeah.
I think if they ask, that's fine, right?
Sure,
I think you've got a guy that you want to ask to have on the show, and I've watched
there's another MMO channel that I'd love to get him on the show.
Yeah.
And he's just like, his channel is hardcore MMO. I've watched some of his streams too, just to kind of feel him out. And he does a lot of hardcore original RuneScape stuff like that. And he's a super like MMO fantasy nerd, and so I think he
and you've showed me. I've seen a couple of his videos, and I agree. But that's how it should be done, right? Like I could see an audience maybe pressuring a host to say, hey, you should invite this guy onto your show. Not the opposite though.
Right.
Like you can't go up to like a lower level like personality and say, hey, you should go on this higher level personality or whatever, or
Yeah.
even just
They know
hey, you should go on this show.
They'd invite me if they wanted
Yeah,
me
it's
on
like,
there.
right?
Like,
Exactly. You know, so like I think in the
Right.
instance of this other guy you're talking about, like you want him on our show, and I agree. And if he's interested, he's more than
Right.
welcome to come. But we don't want to force ourselves onto other people's shows. That's weird. And there's a guy that I would like to have
Right.
as well on the show sometime. He has
Sure.
really,
Sure.
really in-depth sort of conceptual. I don't want to say fan fictions, but kinda.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
But, and I'll link you later.
What is he? Is he writing fucking hentai?
Not
and shit?
hentai, no.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but the guy in particular that I'm thinking about, he basically he made a video about a conceptual Final Fantasy VIII 2. And at first I was like, I didn't really like Final Fantasy VIII that much.
I didn't
now
like
that
eight
now that I'm
almost
an
at all.
adult, it worked back when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult, like it's hard for me to relate. But his description of a Final Fantasy VIII
Right.
2 and his reasoning as to why things like certain story elements would occur, I was like, that's a good fucking story. I would love to see that, you know? And so that's for him.
Absolutely.
That's what he's also got a bunch of in-depth character analyses of a lot of Final Fantasy characters.
Interesting.
So I like
Yeah, show me some of his stuff,
will.
and we'll
I
see if
will,
he'd be a good
yeah.
guest. So we've kind of covered. I'm looking over our notes here. We've covered streaming psychology quite a bit. We've covered the streaming culture, the impact it has on everything. One thing we didn't touch on real quick before we wrap up is I'm gonna ask you, what, if any, niche do you think that Twitch and streaming services in general fill for people?
Oh yeah, well there are differences in between. And actually, I actually have a whole comment. Again, it's off of ZORPG's a comment from the beginning of the show. He said
Right.
that Twitch. He says don't do it unless 90% of your content is the meat space, and or you have boobs.
Yeah.
Seems to be the direction they're going with them trying to court older people.
Like, don't even get me started on how many people, like, seriously, all they do is fucking stream Fortnite or
Yeah.
Overwatch. Like, that's
Right.
it. And I'm like, really, dude? No one fucking gives a
Right.
shit.
Well, and that's the thing.
about
Is like
those
if you
games.
don't like, you're not going to get noticed if you're streaming the
Right.
thing that everybody else is streaming. And that was his.
So you have to ask,
Yeah.
what are you streaming? Are you streaming something because you like that game and you want to share your experience, or are you trying to catch on fire
that's the
and
thing.
become the next PewDiePie? Because I'm
Right.
it break to you, but you ain't.
That's the thing.
You ain't gonna be
though,
that.
is like, you can be mediocre and get an audience that way. There was a person that I used to co-stream with, and she
Interesting.
knows a guy that.
There's
Well,
the key.
no. She knows a guy, right? It's not her. She
Oh, okay.
actually runs.
Oh,
She
okay.
runs her channel differently, but the person that she knows is a guy, and that's what he does. Like he puts on a persona, and he's got a following. He's got a larger following than she does. She's got a
Right.
larger following than I do. And he's I think he was on Mixer, and now he's on Twitch, but. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, he had probably 30 to 40 people watching him on Mixer, which is big for Mixer.
Okay.
But
That's big for Mixer.
but he
yeah.
throws on a persona, and he kind of stole that persona from another person, Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah.
It was like a
I was actually about to bring
yeah,
up.
it was a
Dr. Disrespect.
satirization of that persona.
See, and that's the thing is, I don't have a problem with someone have a persona on their Twitch streams, on their streams, when they, if they very clearly, obviously, intentionally have a persona that they've created, and so they're still being genuine in the sense of, hey, this is a character I'm
Right.
playing, and you know it straight up. What I have a problem with is when someone clearly has a persona, but they're masquerading it as that's who they really are.
Yeah. Well,
And
because that's part of the
that's when I
draw
have an
as an
issue.
audience, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there that are lonely, specifically male
Mm-hmm.
gamers that are lonely, which explains why there are so many women that have channels like they
Right.
do. You've
Right.
got a ton of men
Exactly.
that aren't
Exactly.
getting
A
anything.
lot of simps out
exactly.
there.
You got a ton of men out there that don't feel like they can make it in real life, and there's a lot of reasons as to
Right.
why they can't, and they want to have that like actual connection with the person. So if you can fake that, right, and you can sell that
Right.
and package it and advertise it and throw it out there and monetize it, then that's why you see, because sex is always sold, and that's why you see that. I like it's a little more insidious because, like, I don't. Some of the women, like, I understand, right? It's like, it's easy money, and
Right. Oh, absolutely.
but some of the people that like really like lay it on, and try to like specifically for their pay pigs, that try to like get them to think that like they actually have a chance with them, or whatever. Like that's
right.
that's a little too far, and they're using their
And
supposed love to extract resources from.
sure.
From
And this ties it
unwitting
in
males.
perfectly how this ties in perfectly to how we can wrap this up from, because it ties right into the first comment you made, which is at the very start of the podcast, which is my advice to dudes that are the way you just described, which is, here's my advice, you guys listening, because open your goddamn ears. Bitches ain't shit. Okay, so
Hoes and tricks.
but hoes and tricks. So here's exactly what I mean. Like, if you're one of these guys and you're lonely, ties back into our first episode. By the way, if you haven't seen it, link in the description below. But self-validate, man.
Yeah.
You don't need external validation, and to be honest, you're really even not getting it. Stop giving your money to these Twitch thoughts. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Have some fucking respect. Self-validate. Set goals. Play games you love. Make friends. Get in shape. Eat right, and stop being a fucking idiot that just dumps all your money in the hopes that someone will like you for it. Because pro tip, they won't.
Yeah, that's escapism in and of itself. Yeah, like if you're gonna jump into Twitch as an audience member, do it to explore other people's genuine personalities. Don't
Absolutely.
do it to try to don't do it just to try to fulfill a fantasy. Like try to make genuine connections. I think that was one of the issues that I kind of had with the guy responding, is he's just expecting an audience, and it's really difficult for him to get an audience. And there are strategies that you could do, but I don't want to suggest those, because a lot of
Trust
those.
me, when you first start streaming, and I'm sure you know this as well, you're talking to nobody for a long time.
I don't. I just play. Like
yeah, you just play. See, and I would talk just because really all I had to do was apply my inner monologue to voice it. That's all I would do. It was my inner monologue. I just voice. But that's pretty.
And
much
I've heard
it.
that
But,
suggestion. You voice your inner monologue. Do collaborations, have a YouTube channel.
See, that's the thing, is some people are so dumb they don't have inner monologue. But, that's a topic for another day. But anyway, this episode we covered streaming and our thoughts. So please, anybody who's watching this on my channel or Rhomagus' channel, please leave your comments down below. If you have any topic ideas that you'd like to hear us discuss, those are also very welcome, either in our comment section, or you can email us directly through our contact information that's available on our YouTube pages. Again, this whole stream, both of our streaming information and channel information has been on screen. If you've been looking at this on your phone or something, it's in the description. But Rhomagus, what are we talking about next week? What's on the docket? Leadership.
There's plenty.
It's a very good topic in the MMO space about leadership.
Real life space. It's something that you can use MMOs, and you could explore MMOs, and you can bring that into your real life space.
Or you can bring it in from your real life space into MMOs.
Yep.
So good topic. All right, great. And then let's brainstorm, because I think privately, I think the show we're going to be doing after next week. So after the leadership topic will be the one. I want to invite that other gentleman on, and so we can make it. We got to make it as MMO related as possible, because that's his specialization. Right. So that's what we will do. But anyway, guys, this has been Raziel with Game Musings with Raziel, and Rhomagus. Go ahead and do your outro there, buddy.
That's me, Rhomagus. You can see me on my channel, and hope to see you in the next one.
Yep. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Have a good one, and keep it real.
Bye.